Good morning, Giants. Welcome to Wake Up with Giants TV, where we believe that you have the power and the potential to be a giant in your own world. Today, we have a very special show where we're gonna, if you don't know how to create the wisdom within and your path to self healing, well, we've got a show for you. It's time to wake up the inner giant. Sometimes the inner giant just needs a whisper to wake up.
Wake up. I think you muted out, man. Sometimes it needs a microphone to wake up too.
Yeah. That was awkward and weird.
Yeah, it's
Sometimes the
perfect.
inner giant just needs a whisper to wake up. That's it. And plus, we're coming to you an hour earlier, so we wanted to wake you up gently because normally we're on at 9. Today we're on at 8 because today we have an amazing show for you. But if you don't follow us, go to YouTube, hit the alert button and the subscribe button so you know when we go live every single dang time. You can follow us at giantsandsmalls.com. If you want to join our get to know us and join us on with our SG groups, it's called the Sum Gigante. That's our 12 journeys. It's an 8-week program that will totally transform your life. 12 journeys coaching.com. Scrolling at the bottom.
Scrolling.
Scrolling. That is awake. We are waking up. And
Waking up.
yeah, what other amazing
Well,
things am I missing? Because I'm sure there's a couple.
you're doing great, man. The integrative book readings that we do about the giants and the smalls and the 12 journeys coaching, we've got one coming up tomorrow night. If you'd like to be a part of that, just reach out to us and we'll get you the link so that you can sign up for that. We go through the book, the metaphor of the book, the giants and the smalls, and we dive deep into the 12 journeys to give you a framework for releasing your inner giant. And so it's mind blowing. Participants are saying that it's life changing. They were not expecting what happens in these integrated book readings because they're used to most programs being real surface level, and this dives deep into your history and everything that's keeping you small. So be a part of that. That'll change your life. So
Sweet. And I'm
yeah.
Ryan Morris, co-founder of Wake Up with Giants TV and Tribe of Giants. And this is Nicholas T. Smith, the author of The Giants and the Smalls, and the guy that's going to introduce our amazing guest today.
I'm going to do that. Yeah, we're truly honored. We've got Kai Jordan. He's co-founder of Devotional Love alongside with his wife, Gabriella Artini. The dynamic duo, almost sounds like Batman and Robin here. The dynamic duo have made it their mission to raise relationship consciousness worldwide and preserve the innocence of children through creating sacred relationships and healthy family structures. So Kai's profound wisdom is rooted in his 12 years of facilitating transformation and deep healing, having conducted over 7,000 individual sessions and helping people from all walks of life. His holistic and presence-based approach enables clients to tap into their inherent wisdom and promotes healing from within. So as we navigate the profound journey that is Kai's life, we will uncover the intricacies of his work and perhaps gain a fresh perspective on what it means to live a giant life. So sit back, relax, comment like crazy because we love that, and join us in this inspiring conversation with Kai Jordan. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. It's a
Yeah,
pleasure.
I'm glad you're awake. I mean, it's 10 p.m. over in Bali and
Yeah,
8 a.m. here, a little bit of a time difference. And so
yeah,
we're glad you did this. Thank you.
yeah. I'm usually on the other side.
Yeah,
90% of the people that we work with are in the United States. I see them in my morning, their
yeah.
evening. So I'm used to being on the other side, but it's a pleasure to be up and having this conversation.
Well, we love to tie in all the worlds. So your philosophy, your journey, what it took to get you to where you are today. We are going to start with where you had an awakening moment of becoming more than you thought you were in the past. So who you are today, would you say that you've always been this guy, or was there another version of you at some point that was living way below his potential? And can you talk about that?
Yeah, there have been multiple moments of that in my life. Um, I'd say the first one, like my first moment of realizing there was something more to my life, happened around the age of 19, 20. I can't remember exactly when it was. I was working on an album at the time. I was in a completely different part of my life, just finishing massage school at the time, finished my first album. I was doing R&B, hip hop music. And that was I guess my childhood was growing up playing piano since the age of 3, classical piano. And around the age of 18, I started writing music after a breakup, kind of the proverbial, writing music, writing love songs after you get your heart broken. And that was an awakening in itself, because I began to explore the possibility of creating out of the pain. So that was something that was new. I hadn't really tapped into that before, using the suffering to create something beautiful. And out of that came a number of songs and eventually even a record deal. But I ended up turning that down and ended up going down a different route, because in 2012, another proverbial experience, December of 2012, I finished my album. I get the hard copies. There's like 1,000 copies we ordered. I get the hard copies. I look at the cover and I see the person on that cover. And I realize that's not who I am.
Hmm.
And from that moment, I went very deep, like from 1 minute to the next. I went deep in from music into meditation. And I started like finding different people and different teachers, and I was just dedicated to exploring whatever was beyond what I thought I was, because that I didn't know it at the time, but that was kind of living out the life that my parents had envisioned for me, and it wasn't necessarily my life. So at that moment, I knew that's not who I was, and the search began.
Hmm.
I would say that it took the last 12 years, because it's been almost 12 years since that, to really explore and experience the depths through different spiritual practices and healing practices and transformative coaching practices. And 6 months ago, I had a feeling inside of myself. I didn't know what it was, but I'd felt it many times before. Usually I would eat. I would just eat, and that would make the feeling go away. So I knew I had kind of this emotional eating
Yeah.
pattern.
Yeah.
At this point, I was like, I was ready to break the cycle, and I felt like I was at war within myself. I felt like whatever was happening inside of me, there was a part of me that was resisting, part of me that was struggling to allow, struggling to surrender to. And I was on a conversation with a friend who lives in Sedona, actually, and we were talking about this kind of this dynamic of my inner masculine being at war with the inner feminine, like this more intuitive aspect of myself, wanting to take the lead, or wanting to be more present in my life, and the logic just fighting it. It's like, hey, you could do this. Like, well, that doesn't make sense. And I was noticing this dialogue inside of myself, questioning this inner voice, this inner knowing. And somehow, by grace, I decided that day that I was going to let the intuition win. And I was finally going to let my logic lose. And the logic doesn't like to lose. The logic perceives that as death. So that was a very interesting war, because essentially what happens when you disengage the analytical mind, which is what I later came to realize what I did, it feels like you're going into a dark hole or a space that you have no idea where it's going. There's confusion, there's fear, there's all of this internal turmoil happening. So most people don't like to go there. But that day I decided to go there. I felt sick to my stomach very quickly. I went and laid down in the fetal position on my bed. My wife opened the door. She just came home from the gym. She looked at me. She knew something was off. And she said, what's going on? Are you okay? And I said, no, I'm not okay. Something's off. And she came down, sat down, put her hand on my leg, and I instantly burst into tears, started crying. This went on for about an hour. And I was brought the awareness of memories of having a surgery when I was 2.5. I had no recollection of. I started remembering being put under. I remembered waking up and wondering what happened to me. I had bandages on my genitals, and they had done something to me, and I didn't know what was going on. And I went through this experience of what I now call nonverbal trauma that was stored in my body for all these years. I was 34 when this happened, so that had to have been, 32 years, just under 32 years. That was just in my body. And the whole time that I was alive, I always felt, man, there's something off. There's something not quite right. I would even make meaning out of that feeling and think there's something wrong with me. Did I do something wrong? Is there something inherently wrong? And while I was releasing for that entire time, I had this moment of realization that question that I've been asking, what's wrong with me? What did I do wrong? What did I do to deserve this? That punishment, I thought it was a punishment. And there were no answers to those questions. Like, there was not a legitimate answer to that question, because what did I do wrong to deserve a surgery that was required? Nothing.
Yeah.
But somehow that question, the need to answer that question, the analytical mind, kept that deeper knowing, that deeper wisdom at bay. Your deeper intelligence cannot speak to you when your analytical mind is running the show.
Yeah.
And that was the moment where things started to shift, and I really consciously disengaged this, what I thought was curiosity, which was really skepticism and questioning, a deeper knowing. And that deeper knowing, when it was free to be expressed, I went through an incredible healing experience that led to many discoveries in the last 6 months, including the discovery of the underlying way of being that was established in that moment, which I call the Punisher, which believes that in order to learn the lesson, I have to punish myself.
Yeah. See, I don't want to move on to that yet. I'm not ready for that yet. We're going to get to that. But, I really, my goal is to anchor in for people to see this in their own lives, where, you're born into this world. You have genetic predispositions that are handed down, right? You come into a family system, and the family teaches you certain value systems. They say, this is important, put this on, wear this is what we do in this family, right? Then you step into your culture and you start taking that on. And then you take into the society and the nationality and the world and all these things, and you think, that's who I am. And then you have your own experiences without full context, like you said, when you're 2 years old, and you start making meaning of those. And sometimes you don't even have the logical knowledge of it. You just have it stored somewhere in your body. And so we go around, like you say, the Punisher is like taking all of that information, and you create your whole world based on what you thought you should do, right? And you have this awakening of, that's not even me. I don't recognize that guy. That's everything everybody else wanted me to be, and that's not who I am. And so you wake up to that, right? And so the grace that gives somebody is that who you thought you should be in the world, and how you measure yourself against who society taught you to be, and how you keep not measuring up to that, and then you punish yourself for not measuring up, right? You're never good enough. Does that bring up some ideas there, Kai? Like, do we all have a version of that? Is that pretty common?
Yeah. So when that happened to me, then I call it my lab, my work with people, 7,000 and counting sessions. That's been for me an opportunity to be able to explore how human beings are constructed mentally, emotionally, physically. And I went into my lab. I started sharing
Yeah.
these insights and discoveries with people, and found very quickly that this is on some level an archetypal thing, a social thing, a cultural thing. The
Yeah.
deep conditioning around I did something wrong, or there is this idea of sin, the initial judgment, you're born sinful. Just these things that are infiltrating our consciousness, our awareness from a social, cultural context.
Yeah.
They are there in most people. Education systems indoctrinate this method of almost creating a need to compare yourself to others, to place yourself in the world, right? Comparing your grades to other people's grades, or on some levels, even punishing yourself when you're not getting it right, failing, things like that. So this is a cultural thing, this is a social thing, but inside of every person, it appears slightly differently. And what I came to see is that on some level, uh, what I was doing, what a lot of people are doing, is attacking myself
Mm.
for an idea that I had created when I was young that had no relevance or truth, which is that there is something that I did wrong, or that there is something that turns into eventually there's something wrong with me.
Like you said, the punishment, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and then what that turns into is often this internal destructive nature, right? I look at it because I do a lot of men's work as well. I work with men, and this often shows up in men's work, is that masculine energy, right? That a lot of people are referring to as toxic today.
Right.
What is that? What are they referring to? Well, in my own experience, the masculine energy is quite a powerful force. It's a creative force. If it gets suppressed, it becomes a destructive force. Like if you contain an explosive device, it becomes even more dangerous, right? So that energy that we have, that creative power that the masculine energy contains within himself, if that is somewhat directed inward in a negative way, he becomes self-destructive, and then he becomes destructive in his world. And when I saw that Punisher, which he first attacks himself. He first says, "You did it. You didn't do it right. You didn't do it good enough. You did it wrong." And for
Judges
me,
the
what?
crap out of himself, right? Like
Yeah,
we do that, right? We
yeah,
judge hard.
yeah. And that. I mean, for some people, it's criticism. For others, it's the
Mhm.
perfectionist. Right. This is all the same thing, right? Criticism, the hypercriticism. You experience someone who's like, you can never do it right for them, right? That's the same energy, but in a slightly different light because it's externalized. But if you're around the perfectionist, they also feel like they can never get it right. And the Punisher is just the version of oneself that uh, takes it out on themselves, like believes they have to hold on to suffering in order to learn. Like there was almost this idea that if I don't really hold on to this pain, I will not learn enough from that lesson of what happened, and I won't be able to prevent it from happening again. So, this idea that unless we really suffer enough, and I know there are some people that believe that if unless you've suffered enough, you don't learn. And in some cases, that's true.
Or deserve, or like you
Or you
don't
don't
learn, or you
deserve.
don't deserve to have success, happiness, whatever, if you're not suffering a certain amount.
Yeah, yeah, definitely that, grind mentality, that, uh, push through all of this stuff. And to some extent, it's true, but there will never be grace. Like there will never be something greater than you that takes over, that guides you.
Mm.
So that's what I felt um, opening up. When I let that all go, I suddenly felt this openness to something larger than me because I understood. Here's the other interesting thing that came out of that moment. during close to the end of that experience, my wife asked me a question, which I'm so happy she did. She said, "What do you need right now?"
Hmm.
And without hesitation, the first thing that came up intuitively was, "I need me. I need the person I became, the one that holds space for others, the one that has all these skills that he's
Hmm.
developed. If I had me when I was 2.5, I wouldn't have suffered." What I realized was that when I went into certain experiences during that surgery, and I had medical emergency procedures done without freezing and anesthesia, and so there was some traumatic experiences. I didn't trust my caregivers after that. I didn't trust the doctors, the medical system, or my dad, which he was always there and very helpful, but there was something that I lost that trust in him, and I started placing a huge responsibility on myself, that I had to be the one to figure everything out. I had to be the one to take care of myself. I
At
had to
two
be the
years old, right?
exactly
Holy cow.
at a very young age,
Yeah. Yep.
at too young of an age to be capable to do that. So
Not
then,
even equipped. Yeah.
exactly, not equipped in understanding or capability.
Right.
Like, in terms of, if I thought about protecting myself at that age, any adult could have beat the crap out of me. Like, there's nothing I could have done. So children, I when I do work with kind of inner child stuff, I give people the grace of them understanding that it's not actually at that age fully their responsibility to protect themselves. It's not fully their responsibility to know better. It's not, these things we carry with us from that. It's that child's mind. I don't know about you guys, but I've experienced many times in relationships what I call a neurological regression. I'll get triggered and I'll sound like a 2 or 3-year-old boy throwing a tantrum.
Yeah. Yep.
Right? No,
I've
you
never.
did
No,
that.
I
No, it wasn't
do
me.
that.
Well, so pausing on this real quick, the the development, the cognitive development, the prefrontal cortex is still in development. Parents act as surrogates for kids for their prefrontal cortex until theirs develops. And so during that stage at 2 years old, you think from when you're born, they say we have more neurons at birth than we'll have at any other point in our life. But neural connections start occurring, right? So we have over 1 million synaptic connections a minute during those first few months. And then during that development stage, we're still building our brain, that prefrontal cortex. And so at 2 years old, there's no way physically, neurologically, that you could develop in such a way to take care of your life, because you don't even have that, right?
Yeah.
And so the pressure, like my dad died when I was 2 years old, and I'm in a large family. My mom's trying to keep it together. And so I think back and I'm like, man, I deserve some grace for that experience, and anybody else that has something similar, because I wasn't even in a position to fully understand what was going on. I stopped speaking for 2 years. Like I didn't say a single word for 2 years, right? Because I didn't know how to deal with it, right? And then to go back and look at development and be like, oh yeah, I'm broken because my dad died. Well, no, it's just if I had me, like you just said, back then, I wouldn't have these issues, right? We bring these
And in
artifacts
showing
forward.
yourself the grace, Nick, like
Yeah,
2-year-old version of you, or whenever you have these things in your life as you're growing up, whatever version that is for you, and talking to the people at home and myself, you like they're doing that inner child is doing the best they can possibly do with what they know how to
right,
do to protect you.
right.
This is why, for us, my wife and I, at Devotional Love, that preserving the innocence of children is so important, because how I
I
experienced
have
that
to be
moment
quiet.
was I
Yeah.
felt like my innocence was taken from me. I felt like my soul was crushed
Mm.
in a way, and I had to reclaim that for myself. And that's what happened in the last 6 months. Is I reclaimed my innocence. I reclaimed my perspective of myself, that I was innocent,
Yeah.
that I didn't do anything wrong. That completely changed how I view myself. That gave me, I know a lot of people work on forgiveness. And I have done that many times in my life in different stages. But what seeing my innocence did was it made me realize that even the all the work that I did up until that point, it was working on something that I had created in my own belief. It wasn't seeing the true me,
Yeah.
right? It was all working with the not me. And when I saw the true me, the innocence of that child that went through that experience, there was a love that started to flourish inside of me, and that started to become something that naturally got exuded outwardly.
Can we play with something here? I
Yeah.
want to play with uncertainty, right? The idea of uncertainty, a lot of people hate uncertainty, but the truth is they're walking into the unknown anyway. They just are acting as though they're not. And what tends to happen is that when we look at the uncertainty and we're starting to project our future and what's going to happen next, we seek certainty. So to create that, we bring forward all these artifacts of our lives and we place them in the present moment. And then we generate predictions of what's going to happen next from that. And so we start to create that again in our lives. And, even Brian shared a quote the other day about self-sabotage. Is the reason we self-sabotage is because we know what to expect and we can handle that. And so it creates certainty in our lives. And so when you look at the letting go, a lot of it's the future projecting as well that we do with those artifacts. So when we can really set those on the table and look at them, we start to look at some of these things we've kept and we see it's really not as valuable as I thought it was in my life. I really don't need to lean on that anymore to predict my future, which we're constantly doing. And it really opens the door that everything becomes possible in that unknown. Can you
Yeah.
speak to that a bit? Am I on
Yes.
track with that, or am I way off?
No, I'll say just a quick quirk is that
Yeah.
we all have the capacity to create from nothing. And that's the only time when we're actually creating. Otherwise, we're just remodeling.
Okay.
But
I like
deeper
that.
than that,
Yeah. Yeah.
what I noticed in my journey, and again, I have a lot of data from working with people. So I
Yeah.
also use kind of the experiences that I've seen people go through to come to this understanding. The body itself, it has so much more memory than our conscious mind, our conscious awareness. The conscious awareness is really not that good at directing the subconscious from an analytical perspective.
Okay.
However, awareness has the capacity to go into the subconscious without the analytical mind. And that's where the deeper work really happens. In other words, when you can bring your awareness into your body, and in the body you can experience the feelings and the energies that are still trapped there, that have been unresolved, and those start to integrate. There's something that I've noticed and witnessed in myself, which is like a neurological maturation, which is that the nervous system, when it has trapped energy in it, especially energy trapped from a trauma at a certain age, we get locked in a neurological age. And that neurological age stays in the nervous system. And then when we get under stress, it triggers that. And so we snap back into an age where we have limited resources. Not even
up here, right?
No,
It's
no.
full body.
Yeah, it's more reptilian
Or if
brain.
it's a combo, you're really in trouble. You get the combo here, everywhere. You're really in trouble.
So that does happen. So they know
Big
this.
Mac fries.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, this guy get fries with that.
I'll get the Big Mac and fries combo.
Yeah.
So what we have is we have two different sensory perceptive channels from the vagus nerve. We have a nociceptive channel, which is more of the proprioception, and it's actually the neurons in the gut, and it's taking information from the environment. And so it's so when you go into a dark alley and your hair stands on end before you know why it's standing on end, that's nociception. Yeah, exactly, Stevie. It's time stamped, and that's I'll share something about time stamping in a little bit. It's very interesting. So nociception is the instinctual. It's the reptilian aspect of our survival. So, for example, in Bali, I was out putting the laundry away, and our laundry is on the grass. I went to put my foot out onto the first step, and the lights weren't on, and I didn't even look down, but I saw the image of a snake I had an image pop up in my awareness. And before I could even put my foot down, my left leg jumped instinctively out of fear. And it jumped, I jumped into the grass, and I was like, oh my goodness, what was that? Was that real? Had no idea what was going on. Turned around, put my flashlight on, and it was a green viper. I almost stepped on, and they're very, very poisonous, and they can cause really, really bad damage neurologically. And I had this information, not cognitive, instinctively, and it was an image. My subconscious mind gave me an image without me having any time to even understand. Like, there was no language. It was like snake. The unconscious communicates in pictures, and one picture is worth 1,000 words or more. So that was enough for me to understand what I was dealing with, and my body just reacted. So this system is already set up. And a lot of times when we're triggered, let's say we're in relationships, snakes, why I don't live in Bali, yeah. That's one of the reasons right now. It's changed a lot since COVID. COVID was, I would say, the paradise time in Bali. It was like untouched.
Yeah, beautiful.
But this nociception, what it does is it alerts us and it triggers fight or flight independent of cognition. So you don't have to. So that's nociception, and then you have perception, and perception is when the information has been routed through your hippocampus, and the hippocampus routes that to 197 different memory centers of the brain and constructs an image. So the visual image that you receive on a daily basis is 80% constructed by memory and 20% constructed from reality.
There's a space, I want to hang here and keep going. Yeah. Like, I love this. I'm nerding out a little bit. The idea of neurons in the body, right? The space between your eyes, you can't see that. So the brain fills in the gap and creates that perception that it's there. But you really, this is not visible to you. And then the neurons firing, the slowest is 1 mile per hour and the fastest is 268 miles per hour. In the case of the snake, I'd probably want the faster one, right?
That was helpful.
But all of these
1 mile an hour one would get you.
You're like on Austin Powers in the steamroller, man. You'd be like, I'm being bitten.
Slowly stepping on it.
But the body is already designed for this. Like, it's not like we needed to create that in ourselves for that to happen. It's already pre-wired for that. And so understanding how the body works is essential, I think, to change, right? To recognize, it's not just a bunch of gears up here, right? So going back to the hippocampi, there's two of them, correct, that create memories, and go back to that and continue.
Yeah. So essentially, what we believe we're experiencing is not the world as it really is. We experience the world through large amounts of data filtration from previous experiences. When we experience trauma responses, it can happen independent of our perception, our conscious awareness. That's why if you walk down a dark alley, you start feeling chills, you're going to start looking for danger. What that is, there may be real danger, or that could just be that there are certain sensory information that mirror a traumatic experience when you're a child.
They look similar too, right?
Yeah.
Or they are perceived as similar, right?
Exactly. Could have been someone screamed in the distance and the tone of voice was something that happened when you were a child, or I skipped down dark alleys. Hilarious.
whistling with a Big Mac.
Right.
Yeah.
and and so this is why relationally,
Yeah.
this is why we focus on relationship, because most trauma is relational trauma. You didn't
Hold on,
traumatize
dude.
yourself. Like, you were in a dynamic, and the dynamic caused a life-threatening or perceived life-threatening experience, danger in the nervous system, and it got revved up. So then you now have a dynamic internally. So just a simple example, a parent screams at the child to the degree that they really feel that they're in a state of threat.
Mm.
Now that child at some point starts to mirror that behavior within them. When they start to get things wrong or they make a mistake, they start to attack themselves, scream at themselves, and they create that own same trigger inside of themselves.
They don't need the parent anymore because they can do that for themselves, right?
Exactly. And we become very good at modeling this internal dynamic.
Can we hang here for a second?
Yeah.
Man, this is so impactful for people that are listening, and this can be freeing, and it's also very challenging to sit with this. It's like relational trauma is where you think most trauma occurs, and that word trauma meaning a turning of the wound, it means it never really fully heals because it just keeps getting twisted. And relational, not just in, I think in relationships, like you have a partner or a spouse it's not that, it's all relationships, right?
Yeah.
And the anxieties that come up in that, and then the thinking that that's happening again and again, never letting that heal, properly, because you're in it, right? So what do you tell people if let's say they are in a relationship currently that's constantly turning the wound, right? Like,
Yeah.
their partner or spouse is like, holy cow, like the ultimate wound turner.
Yeah, this is why relationships are so powerful, because
Yeah.
they are the conditions in which most of our trauma was created. And we attract, right? They know this from attachment theory, the same neurological pathways that were generated between the bonding patterns of our parents are the same neurological pathways that get repurposed for intimate relationships when we're older. So the way that you bonded to your parent is the way you'll seek bonding in your partner. That's why we're attracted to certain people unconsciously.
Gosh,
But
dang it,
what
man.
that does,
That's not cool, man.
well, it provides a very interesting opportunity,
Yeah.
Sure
because
explains a lot.
Yeah.
it explains a lot on one level, and then we often think like, wow, I married my mom, or I married my dad, right?
Right.
What we're doing is we're trying to recreate a dynamic in which we can resolve these unresolved patterns, and that's where neurological regression is so important to understand, because when you get into a trigger, your nervous system is perceiving through nociception a threat just by a tone of voice.
Mm.
You're activating a neurological age that is a regression. Yeah, that's why I just have a dog. And they're great.
This is why I have a dog. this is
Yeah.
yeah. You don't go backwards
They're
and
actually
work through this. You just
they're
get a
very
dog.
good.
Sorry.
So no, it's all good. I'm loving the comments. I'm finding them hilarious.
Yeah.
It's we're hardwired on some level instinctively. Now this is the instinctual part. We call this the default pattern.
Yeah.
To seek out a person that will bring up these traumas.
So that we can work on them, or?
Well,
Is that like a subconscious thing?
That's
like,
a conscious choice.
Okay.
The default is simply just that we're drawn to those experiences that are present in our nervous system. We're just drawn to those experiences. And again, it's like it's so unconscious. 95 or more % of our interactions are unconscious.
Okay, so so some of these comments, this is why I'm saying I can
Yeah.
relate to this, okay?
Yes.
But there is stuff that absolutely will not come up unless you're in a relationship. You will
Yes.
not be triggered by yourself. It's like I don't go around saying, "Hey, you're a piece of shit," right, to myself. Some people do, but I've worked on that, so I don't do that as much anymore. But in a relationship, triggers things that cannot come up any other way,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so it's almost like I want to challenge myself. We have a friend, a business partner in an event we're working on. He's a cliff jumper. He's like a base jumper, right? He seeks out that adrenaline. It's almost like going into a relationship because the adrenaline high that it gives you is like, oh, I'm going to tackle some shit today, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Absolutely.
huh?
Well, this is where the majority of relationships play out, and then they stop at a certain point, which is when the resolution should occur. Because when things are when things are really triggered for both people, that's the opportunity to break a pattern. That's the opportunity to use consciousness to become conscious.
Mm.
But for most people, we withdraw, we act out, we we cathartize our inner wounds.
Internalize, yeah.
We externalize, internalize. We do anything but really face
Mm.
what's there and take responsibility for it. And that's why, in order to really utilize the container or the possibility of relationships to their fullest potential, you have to understand, this is what we're sharing a lot in devotional love, how to create a spiritual partnership, how to create a container and an agreement that goes beyond the default patterns.
Mm.
And we use devotion a lot in that, because devotion is essentially in one of our people that we look up to, Sadhguru. In his words, he says, it's to become devoid of yourself. It's to become empty within yourself.
Mm.
And that's the opportunity in the
People are
relationship.
like, I'm not dating. I'm getting a dog.
It's exactly
We're not
like
going
base
deep.
jumping. Yeah.
We're not facing this.
I really feel that this is a major issue in society, because here's the thing. Our world is headed towards more disconnection, towards a destruction of family systems,
Right.
towards hyper individualization, towards what we see as this indoctrination of kids at a younger and younger age with apps and different mechanisms to control their mind and to separate them from their parents. So we see that this is where the world is heading, and that's going to cause incredible amounts of dysfunction and destruction.
Mm.
That's why, unless there's a solution, unless people understand there's a possibility to overcome myself and my relationship and experience a kind of harmony that most people only experience in the honeymoon phase, right? A kind of love and bliss and all those feel-good dopamine, serotonin, chemicals. There are ways to create that long after the honeymoon phase, which is a biological thing. The biological time frame of the honeymoon phase is around 2 years.
Mm.
And you do get that support from nature. But after that, most people, they fall into the default. They fall into a pattern of just playing out the patterns that were conditioned as a child. And that's why it's so important that we raise relationship consciousness, raise our relationship consciousness. Because if we function from the level that we were programmed, we'll never get out of our own cycle. We'll never experience the kind of long-lasting potential of love and sexual fulfillment and deep connection and intimacy that many human beings who are mammals, anyone who's a mammal can relate, that they desire that connection. They desire to be with a person.
This is for all you mammals out there. Just, yeah.
And if you're a human that's not a mammal, we want to interview you.
It's
Kai, real quick, the automation of things. So when we talk about gratitude, and gratitude is one of those things that you can't automate for it to be effective. If you turn it into a task, a heuristic, an automation, it takes all the emotion and the consciousness out of it, right? And it doesn't have the effect. And when it comes to relating, any form of relating, right? This model of making it non-conscious, I just show up in my relationship automatically and I do the same thing and I have my patterns. I don't want those interrupted. You're not going to have the fulfillment that you're looking for, because it sounds to me from what you're saying that relationship is a very conscious, very emotional, very present experience that you have to keep re-engaging with as long as you're in it. Is that accurate, or am I?
Yeah. Well, if you want it to work,
Okay.
That's
Okay.
important.
Yeah. If not, go
If
ahead and
you can,
automate
Only
it.
if you want it to
Yeah.
work.
most of the times, people want to avoid the conflict, but the
Mm.
conflict in the relationship is what is bringing everything that needs to be addressed and resolved to the surface. And the conflict is not with someone else; it's inside of you. And so what we're seeing is in the relationship again these triggers, these neurological events that get triggered because of similar situations as childhood events, they start to activate, and then we project that there must be something in my environment causing that. That must be my partner. It must be something that they're doing, and we never really slow down to be able to work out at the level of the nervous system
I,
what's
I
going on.
I had to look that word up. Like people are like, "Oh, Nick, he's got these words memorized." I don't. I have Adam online, right, pulled up, so that I can look these words up, and then I remember it. That's all I do, right? But the word conflict, what a powerful word, right? You talk about conflict, and the first part of it, "cone," means together, and afflict means to strike something together, right? So this thing comes up, and that doesn't that make sense in the context of what you're saying here? Is like together we're going to tackle this thing, together we're going to strike at this thing. But
Yeah.
people avoid conflict, right? But it's the very
Yeah.
thing that we could do together. It's like conversation or communication. They mean to have something together, community, communication, right? And so conflict is one of those things that's done together with another person or another human being. I mean,
Yeah.
what a beautiful insight, Kai. I think that's powerful. Stop avoiding conflict because it's something you're supposed to do together, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why, like, not enough people have a vision for their partnership.
Hmm.
A vision, we call them collaborative visions. We help when we're in that phase of work, we have different phases of our work. First phase is deconditioning, which is to help people integrate those deeper patterns that are unconscious. The next phase is a creative phase where we help create a collaborative vision. Because if you have two people who have never sat down and actually considered consciously, what do I want from this relationship? Then you have two people who are in many ways unconsciously working against the very thing that they want,
Right.
which one person wants this and the other person wants something else. And they don't know that they're unconsciously working against each other. Like, there's a very specific exercise we do. We call it the co-creation exercise. And we have people sit down and create a vision for various aspects of their relationship, their sexuality, their finances, their parenting, their family time, their trips, their spiritual process, whatever it may be. You have to create consciously a vision for the relationship, because if you don't consciously put that, if you don't use your creative power to create the possibility of a future, then what will play out is your default. That's just how it works. The
Your,
mind,
your
unless it has a
history will
default,
play out, right? Your
your
history will
history
play out
will
as your
just
default.
play out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there will be no new possibility of a neural pathway that can be changed, right? If you don't envision a new possibility for your reality, you can't change your neural pathways to begin to support that. So for a
Okay.
couple, it's even more important, because what you do have is two people with different values, often different history. Like, my wife is from Italy.
Yeah.
I'm from Canada. She's 9 years older. Like, we have completely different, like, aspects of our life. Yeah, this has been our experience, that we met and fell in love beyond the personal. We didn't
Yeah.
know each other really. Like, we didn't know anything about each other before we had very deep, intimate experiences and connection to one another. It
Mm.
was just very energetic for us. So we had to go back. Like, that was fueling the relationship. Is this, I don't even know you. There's this incredible chemistry and this incredible connection. And I like, we met in Spain, and I was living in Canada. She was living in Bali. When we left, I flew out within a couple months and then eventually moved out here. Like we couldn't stay apart. Like there was something drawing us together. And as we started living together, we came up against what many people come up against, those personal issues, the things that you have to work through and iron out, and differences in beliefs and values and the way that you want to operate in your life. And when we created our shared vision, we stumbled upon this somehow. We just thought, I think we need to really sit down and think about what we want. When we created that, we stumbled across something magic. Because what most people don't understand, and we didn't understand this, is that there's a way to create your future vision of the relationship that when you actually align on that, because of the nature of masculine, feminine, I mean, we have a child. I provided something, she provided something else. Because there's a natural mechanism there, when you're aligned and you both hold the same vision, it manifests almost, like for us, almost instantaneously. We teach couples how to co-create and then how to speed up the manifestation process through energizing it with sexual energy.
I've heard of that. And man, you said a word earlier that I think could be easily missed, that you're talking about the vision that's created together. That word consider it means to look to the stars together. To look to the stars together. So like considering like it takes on a whole new meaning, is like, let's look to the stars together and create this vision of our relationship. And then you start to manifest, right? You both bring things to the table and you start to create things, right? It just starts showing up because you're both considering, right, what it is that you're going to bring into this world, and you do.
Yeah.
I just wanted to anchor that in, but I'll let you keep going. I'll quit interrupting you because this is amazing.
There's such a powerful force. I don't know what it is. I mean, but when there's a masculine and a feminine, and that can be a man or a woman, it doesn't, we're not looking at, we look at the primordial energies that exist in every human being. So it's just that when there's one person holding this pole and another person holding the opposite pole, there is a possibility, a creative possibility that nature provides the fuel for. Like it's an energy, two primordial energies. They talk about this a lot in yoga, but there are certain things in nature that we see as masculine, certain things we see as feminine, right? And those two forces are different qualities of life. This is why my analytical mind could not understand my intuitive, mind, because they're polar opposites. And well, ask any man if he really understands the feelings of his partner through trying to intellectually understand and communicate. What are you feeling, thinking about it? No, feelings are not representative. Feelings are not, they don't have meaning. They are pure expressions of life.
They're constructions of the world, right?
Feelings are the present moment unfolding. The energy of the present moment unfolding inside of a person. And that is not something you have to reflect upon or consider or something that you have to make meaning about. It's something that is. It exists. What we think about it is our own personal subjective made up reality. And so if we're communicating with someone who's in a state of expressing feeling and we're trying to understand them, we're not in the same world. And that's why, men are from Mars, women are from Venus. That's the whole concept of that book. In reality, there's that both of us, men and women, both have masculine and feminine inside. And what we work with people is we help them learn how to go in and out of the dynamic so that they can be supportive to one another, because it's not, these hyperpolarized relationships, they're also not healthy, right? Men always being men, men never being able to share feelings, and women always, feeling like they have to be like this in the creative surrender, and I have to be okay with everything. Like, that's also not the healthy. Uh, the extremes are not the healthy types of relationships. It's where we can be a little bit more flexible and fluid, and both show up together with a common vision, with a collaborative vision, and just do what's needed. And that's where the devotional piece comes in. This is another thing from Sadhguru that's really helpful. He says, dumb people do what they hate. Smart people do what they love. But intelligent people only do what's needed. Like, to go beyond preference, to go beyond, I like this, I don't like this, to go beyond, I need this, I need that, the personal, the ego, to go beyond that. That's the spiritual possibility in your relationship. To be able to look at, this is what we're creating together. Who do I need to be? If I want to experience memories that I experience as having cherished my life with my partner, my wife, who do I need to be now? So that on my deathbed, I'm looking back and I have those memories. Is it the person I'm being now? Or is it someone different? Oh, but I don't like being different. I like being me. I like being right. I like being convenient, and I like having things done my way. Well, is that going to lead to the kind of legacy or memories? For me, it shows up just as memories when I think about, how am I going to remember the life that I lived? And what kind of memories
Read
am I
your
going
mind
to
on the
have?
next question.
Yeah.
We usually ask people that exact question, Kai. Like, what, like, tell us about your legacy. What are you gonna do? Like, what do you want to leave when it's all over? You just answered that. Like, that's
Yeah.
an inner, for everybody at home could be sitting there thinking that this is whatever it is for you, and then who do you have to be to do that? And a lot of times it's going back and doing exactly what Kai talked about, finding that balance and going back and working through those subconscious things that to be able to create your life consciously, and it's gaining control of your life because awareness brings control. As you're
Mhm.
aware, you can see you might slip into those old patterns for a minute or a day or two, a week, a month, whatever. But as you gain that conscious awareness, now that gives you power. That gives you
Mhm.
the ability to start to shift and adjust. And sometimes it takes some help. That reach out to somebody like a Kai Jordan who knows how to move you along through this journey, because it could be like a very, very heavy journey as you're navigating this. And somebody with 7,000 one-on-one connections can guide you through these things and help you understand what's going on.
You
Yeah,
know,
that's
assured us that we wouldn't take the little blue pill and make this last all night for you. But if you're okay to go a few minutes longer here,
yeah,
are you
sure.
okay to do that?
Yeah. There was something that you said, Ryan, that just, I think it's good to speak more on, is when you said it gives you control. When I look at the dynamics of what's going on inside of a person and why they're out of control, it's because on some level, these unconscious reactions that occur in the nervous system, beyond cognitive awareness, beyond our perception, they were often dynamics that were created when we were a child and someone above us was the authority. So what happens is, when those get triggered, we sometimes revert into that non-authority, the child nervous system, the regressed
Mm.
state. And from that place, you're not at the cause, you're at the effect.
Mm.
So when that nervous system is activated, and what a lot of people call a dysregulated nervous system, when that is activated on some level, your cognitive capacity, your prefrontal cortex is not active. Your reptilian brain is more active. You're coming more from an instinctual survival state. So to try and create something new, to try and create something better, it doesn't come from that state. It can't come from that state. So the first thing we have to do is get into a neutral state. We have to regulate the nervous system. And this is the missing piece that I found very powerful. I would do a lot of creation work, but then sometimes it wouldn't align. Why? Well, the person or myself was in a dysregulated state. The nervous system was at that effect. It was triggered and it was functioning from being at the effect of an external authority instead of being at the cause of a personal authority, right? That internal authority, that you are the internal authority of your life. Your wisdom is the internal authority of your life. It's the only direct connection to truth that you have. There's nothing outside of you that can tell you what truth is. Only your own inner knowing can connect you to truth, because truth is not.
It's bringing back that power, right? That inner power. It's really empowerment. It's true empowerment.
Does this sound familiar,
Yeah.
Ryan? Like,
it sounds like some 12 journeys that I've heard of.
You know, Kai, what you're
Universal
anchoring
truth.
in for us is, you know, the idea that we all have these non-conscious things, memories, right? That we pull from to predict our future, to live our lives, and we have preferences around those. And so we get stuck in these preferences. We don't want to let them go. And what we want to teach people to do is become aware of those gently, right? Gently become aware of those and fully feel whatever affect comes from remembering those. Fully feel it wherever it is in the body and really connect with that. And to us, the great neutralizer, like you talk about, is acceptance, acknowledgement. It's the second step in change. Awareness first, because if you don't know it's there, you can't do anything with it. But that second step, that acceptance, puts you into neutrality, just flattens it. And then you start elevating with gratitude and other tools of empowerment. You start to get your mind back and your full function, not just your mind, but your full body back. And then to be able to take these artifacts and really notice that they are just artifacts, things you brought forward from your past. And as you predict in the future, are you bringing those artifacts with you, or are you willing to just let them go and consider, right? Look to the stars by yourself or with your partner at other possibilities. Like Einstein says, imagination is more important than knowledge. The artifacts are knowledge. The imagination is so far beyond that. Then we can step into something new. But unless you're willing to let go of your artifacts, your life will continue to be a repetition of what has been, right? You have laid a foundation for people to relate in a way that I don't think they realize how powerful this is. Maybe don't let me speak for you guys. If you're in the comments, you're like, don't talk for me. Like, maybe you do realize. Like, I see it.
I think a lot of these people do realize there's a lot of people out there. There's billions of people that if they knew how this is, I mean, in an hour and even less, because we chatted about some different things along the way, but it really is, there's that simple component. This 1 hour section could completely radically change somebody's life for the better, where then they can move forward in creation in an empowered state and for generations change things. Generations. It's amazing.
Kai, do you have final thoughts? Thank you for that, Ryan. That was perfect.
Yeah, I mean, this is really something that is very important to us. We don't just have a personal interest in this. We see that the world needs it. Again, raising relationship consciousness through understanding how to create a spiritual partnership, how to create a conscious relationship. And a lot of that also, the work that we do is around sexual intimacy, understanding sexuality as a powerful force for transformation and healing. And a lot of people avoid that in their relationship, or they lose that in their relationship, and then they start to go in different directions and start to, that starts to break apart the intimacy. But we found that there are certain pillars And if you look at our website, you can see the 9 pillars. There are certain pillars that if you incorporate different aspects and elements from each one, that you can create consciously your own unique structure of relationship that works for you and your partner, because it's unique to you, and you should have a tool to be able to create the right container for you so that your default doesn't play out. And that's really how we see our deeper mission of preserving the innocence of children. How we see that playing out is through the couple.
Mm.
Is if the couple is in harmony and is experiencing what we call devotional love, which in other words is kind of like heaven on earth. When you're in bliss with your partner, when you're in that state of just total unity and harmony and love, and that's the environment that your children grow up in, then a lot of the stuff that we're doing here now, the work that I do, it's on the effect of people not having that. It's because people haven't had the tools, people haven't had the awareness, people haven't had the experience or the consciousness to be able to conduct their relationship in a way that it
Right.
becomes an environment for children or themselves even. Because your personal intimate relationship, the one with your partner, your life partner, that will either be a sail on your ship, or it will be the anchor. It will sink your ship. Because I don't know, but for me, if I'm having a great connection with my wife, my work, my sense of direction, my purpose, the things that I'm doing, my parenting, it's all elevated by that. When we're deeply in love, it's like that is the wind in the sail.
Mm.
And if that's not there, if we're in conflict, or if we're fighting, if we're in discord or in disharmony, I feel impacted in the other things that I'm doing. And I don't feel that that's a support in my greater purpose.
Mm.
So the relationship is the center of the family. The children are not the center of the family. The relationship is the center of the family, even though when kids come, kids are often seen as the center of the family for the parents. But the relationship must be the center. And when it is, then everything else gets arranged around that. So
Mm.
that's where we're, I guess,
And
coming
if you're not
from. But
in a relationship with somebody else, you're in a relationship with yourself, and you can
yeah,
do this work for yourself. So if there is that relationship with somebody else, then it's, man, you're going to be miles ahead of where we were at the time. So
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
yeah.
huh?
Ryan, final thoughts from you?
Just quick, because I know we don't want to keep you hostage. Another podcast kept him for 3 hours because the wisdom, we could keep you for weeks and weeks, and I think we'd all just be like transfixed on what you're sharing. But ultimately, um, what I hear is that we're the cause of our griefs and our judgments and all like suffering in paradise, as Nick calls it.
Mm,
We're just paradise is really our creation, and hell is our creation. Like we can
yeah.
live in hell, or we can live in paradise. The journey of getting there and deconstructing and processing all those things in a healthy way that have happened in our lives, or that we've created, um, with our experiences, and heaped upon, is like piles and piles of maybe shame and guilt and fears and doubts and worries and all these things. There is a way to unheap that, uncover it,
Mhm.
and you can peel it back layer by layer, and sometimes it gets easier to do, and you can start just like bulldozing the heck out of it to reconstruct your life, to gain that power back, to be able
Mhm.
to be a conscious creator of your life. And I'm so grateful, Kai, for you, for the work that you're doing, the lives that you're touching, the ripple effect that you have, all the way from Bali. And
Mhm.
it took from Canada to Bali to come together, for this to happen. And I'm so grateful for you and your work, and thank you for the time, because this conversation will help a lot of people. Just this conversation will help a lot of people, and I know you'll continue to have many, many ripple effects moving forward. So thank you so much for who you are.
Yeah.
Thank you. Really
Thank you.
appreciate it.
For those that are watching, I'm looking at the comments, just comment after comment after comment. It's just, that's what makes this show so amazing is the interaction, the engagement that comes up through it. Because it just keeps the energy going. So for you that are watching, thank you for being a part of this journey. I'm sure you know somebody in this world that could benefit from this particular conversation. Share it with them. This will be on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, on our Tribe of Giants on Facebook, and on Wake Up with Giants TV on Facebook as well. So grab the link and share it with somebody that you love today, because this conversation alone could be the very thing that changes their life forever in a positive way. And so we're grateful for you for being on with us. We have the same people show up every Sunday. It's amazing to have you all here with us early in the morning. We're not the only ones that have to get up, and Kai's there late at night. It's 11 o'clock now in Bali. And so we're so grateful for you, for your time and your wisdom. And for those that are watching, make sure you go check out their website, devotionallove.com. Read it, digest it, take that information in, share it, meet with Kai, do all the things. So we need another 7,000 interviews, so set those up. And if you haven't looked into our 12 Journeys coaching program yet, we create a framework and a foundation for this. Kai dives deep. And so we create the fundamentals and the foundation, and he's in an area where he gets really deep with it. So do that. We're grateful for you. Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to share that we're super excited because we're coming to America in September and October for our Rise and Love tour. And we're going to be offering in-person workshops. It's been a long time that we've been kept in place by COVID. And so we're doing a string of in-person workshops in Sedona, Phoenix, and LA, California area, San Diego. So if you guys are in the area,
Salt Lake City.
meet us. Hey, if there are people who want to help us put together a workshop in somewhere, we're willing to travel. We have kind of some spots that are open in our schedule. So if you're
Awesome.
a coordinator, or if you have an audience or someone in a certain area, you want to bring this work to you, we're welcome. We do have a Sedona, a 3-day retreat in October during the solar eclipse, which will be our main event, which will be very powerful. And then we're going to be doing a lot of 2-hour workshops around. So if you do have connections you want to connect us to, if you want to come, then please reach out. We hope to meet as many people as possible on our journey.
That's awesome. Thank you for an enlightening show. I'm never going to be the same after this, so I appreciate you, man. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
You're welcome. Everybody that's watching, go make it a giant day. We will see you in the next episode.
Love you too.